Hi. Do you ever wonder about solving inequalities and how interval notation works? Today we're going to look at a question involving both those things. But first, welcome to Algebra Examples. And if you have an algebra question that you'd like to see answered, please feel free to share it in the comments and it may be uh, put up in a future video. Today we're going to look at the inequality 3x minus 7 is less than or equal to 2. And remember our line underneath here, when we look at inequalities, there are two types. We have a just a regular less than or greater than symbol, and then we have the ones with the line underneath to it. It means less than or equal to 2. And write the answer in interval notation. So there are two parts to this. We're going to start off with the part where we solve the inequality. So we'll start out by writing our problem down again. I always like to rewrite it again. It's nice to have that there for your start. What we're going to do is, in this case, we want to isolate x. So we want to get x all by itself. And we're going to start by doing that by getting rid of the stuff that's surrounding it, right? So we see near the x, we've got two numbers. We've got a 3, and then we've got a 7 that we're subtracting. When you're working with a problem like this, you always want to start by getting rid of the addition or subtraction part first, right? So what we're going to do to get rid of it is we want to do the opposite action. So instead of subtracting, we are going to add, and we're going to use the same number. So remember, same number, opposite sign. So instead of subtract, we're going to add. We're going to do that to both sides. Because we're adding to both sides, our sign in the middle does not change. And on the left-hand side, they cancel each other out, the 7s. And on the right-hand side, 7 plus 2 is equal to 9. All right, next thing that we want to do is we want to get that thing that's glued to the x, that number that's glued to the x, out of there. So that's always going to be the second part. The one that's glued with addition or division is always going to be second when we deal with these. Because we were multiplying, we are then going to do the opposite sign. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. We're going to divide on both sides. Remember that 3 divided by 3 is a fancy pants way of saying the number 1. So we can kind of ignore it. It kind of ghosts out into the background, for lack of a better word. And 9 divided by 3 is the number 3. You'll notice I didn't change the sign in the middle at all throughout any of this. When you're adding or subtracting, you leave the sign alone. When you're multiplying or dividing by a positive number, you also leave the sign alone. The time that you have to flip the sign is when negative values are multiplied or divided. So we'll do another problem like that in the future where we have to think about that. So now we're at the point where we have our solution. So we have x is less than or equal to 3. And the next step is to put this on interval notation. I'm going to go through an extra little step, which you don't have to, but I like it because I really like visuals. Now, when it comes to my solution, when I write out my notation like this, I always like the alligator mouth opening to the right. You don't have to do it this way, but if you have your alligator mouths always opening to the right, and if you're not sure what I mean, I always think this looks like a little alligator mouth. So that symbol in the middle, and I'll put a few numbers in here. This tells us, notice our x values here are to the left of 3. And so when we do our line here, actually, let's do this in a yellow. This means that we're looking at everything in this direction, right? And we're going to include the number 3. So if our alligator mouth was not moving to the right, it would be less intuitive of what that number line would look like. So that's why I always like to write out my solutions that way. Now, interval notation. Remember, there are two types of notation parameters that we're going to be working with. We have open parentheses or open brackets, and these do not include a point. And then we have our closed brackets. And those include the point. So because we are including the number 3, we're going to do a 3 and a closed bracket. And notice our interval notation is going to be set up similar to the way we have our inequality written up here. Again, because we're alligator mouths are moving to the right, we don't have to move around where our numbers are, which is super nice. You'll also notice that this line goes off to negative infinity. It just keeps on going forever and ever and ever. So because it doesn't stop, we're going to put negative infinity here. And you might be tempted to do a closed bracket. Lots of students do. Keep in mind, whenever we're working with infinities, we're always going to have an open bracket at the end because infinity is not a point. Infinity is not a number. It is a magnitude or a size. So there are our two solutions. Here is our inequality. X is less than or equal to 3. Here is our notation, negative infinity to 3 with a close bracket. I hope you found this informative. Please feel free again to add any questions that you have to the comments, and you may find them shared in a future video. Thank you for listening.